What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about drops, and specifically the form of the drop and when we want to be making contact with the ball. So to start with, the form of the drop, it's essentially a dink. So everything that you guys have been practicing with your dink, right? Extending towards the ball, keeping your paddle face facing where you want to go, keeping that motion concise. Now we're going to make that motion a little bit less concise, okay? But our paddle face is still going to be facing where we want to go. So instead of going 1 to 3 feet, we're going to go in between 3 and 5 feet as we hit this drop, because we have a greater amount of distance between us and the net when we're hitting a drop, since we're hitting our drops from the baseline. Before we get into that, the reason that we want to hit drops is because it makes the ball less attackable for our opponents. So our opponents that are up on the service line, we're hitting our third shot drops and maybe our fifth shot, seventh shot drops. They are in a offensive position. So we want to be able to put them in a defensive position or neutral position so that we can then come up to the net. So that's the whole point of the drop. The point of the drop isn't to just hit drops, as many drops as we can, right, and stay on the baseline as long as we can. But it's to set us up so that we can be more offensive, which is what we want to be in pickleball, or to get the point to neutral so that we're all up at the net together, because that's where we have the greatest angles to hit to and the greatest chance of winning the point. So with the drop, we're keeping our motion concise, but instead of 1 to 3 feet, we're going 3 to 5 feet as we're hitting through that shot, right? Lifting through it. And we're extending towards where we want to go. So just keep it super simple. All it is a dink with a little bit more motion forward. Okay, we have to put a little bit more power on that ball. With that, the second thing that you guys want to focus on is where you make contact. So first of all, we want the ball to be out in front of us whenever possible. So making sure that we're staying behind the baseline until we see where that return goes. And then we're keeping the ball out in front of us. You'll be a lot more consistent than if the ball is behind you or way to the side of you. But sometimes that happens. And as you progress and get better, you'll be able to get very consistent at getting balls that are behind you, right? Where it's out of your control. But as much as you can control, keep that ball out in front of you. And then you actually want to be making contact with the ball as it's traveling downward off the bounce. So the ball bounces, it reaches its apex or its peak, its very top point, and then it starts traveling downwards. That is when you want to make contact. So not at its peak, but when it starts traveling downwards. And the reason for that is because you're going to be a lot more consistent as you drop the ball as it's traveling downwards, because that's where it's going to have the least amount of spin and pace when it's coming at you. Once it bounces, it loses, I want to say 50%. I'm not exactly sure how much, but a ton. I think it's 50% of its power as soon as it bounces. It's around that. And then as soon as it reaches its apex and starts traveling downwards, it loses more of its power. So it makes it a lot easier for you guys to hit that drop as the ball is traveling downward towards your paddle. The ball bounces, reaches its apex, starts traveling downwards. That is when you're going to hit your drop or make contact with it, preferably out in front of you if you can control it. And that is the tip for this week. So I'll see you guys next week.